Hello and welcome to this tutorial where we will be installing the Windows Subsystem for Linux, also known as WSL. Before we dive into this process, let's briefly discuss why you might prefer using a command line interface over a GUI. First and foremost, as coders, you always look cooler using the command line interface, and that is a fact. But first of all, efficiency. The command line interface allows you to perform complex tasks with simple commands and often being faster than navigating through a GUI, because essentially the GUI has to process the graphical side as well as take care of the operating system tasks that happen in the background. Resource usage is essentially more efficient on the command line interface. Furthermore, you can automate repetitive tasks using scripts in a command line interface and enhance your productivity. And lastly, and the most importantly, the command line interface gives you more precise control over system functions and operating system. Now let's go ahead and install the Windows Subsystem for Linux. Essentially, the Windows has a command line interface for itself, but because Windows was developed for the mass, it is a very GUI dependent system. It has a better GUI than it does a command line interface. Whereas Linux was developed on the command line interface side. So essentially, Linux has a great command line interface. And that's why we have the Windows Subsystem for Linux, where we can use the Linux command line inside our Windows system. So essentially, there's some recommendations that I have. Firstly, go to the Microsoft Store and install this app called the Windows Terminal. It makes things better for you, for me, for everyone else. We're going to install this. This is going to be great. Now, essentially, after that, this is the required step. So we're going to go to this place called Turn Windows Features On or Off. Once we're over here, we're going to scroll down and find this option called Windows Subsystem for Linux. We're going to check that. We're also going to find something called Virtual Machine Platform and check that. Now, Windows might ask you to reboot after this point. If it does, you should do that. After you're back from the reboot, we're going to look at going to the Windows command line interface, which is the Windows PowerShell. And this opens in the app, the Windows Terminal. Now, essentially over here, what we're going to do is, since WSL has had two versions, we're going to set our WSL version to 2. And how we do that is WSL set default, and then version, and then we specify the version to be 2. And once we do that, our default WSL version set to 2. Now we have two different methods of installing our Ubuntu operating system over or inside the Windows system. The first way is going to the Microsoft Store and looking for Ubuntu. And we're going to be installing 22.04, which is the latest version. And that is the easiest way to do it. However, I've personally had problems with installing through the Microsoft Store. So we're going to look at the other option, which is installing through the PowerShell or the command line interface. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to list everything that's available online. What this does is it gives you a list of all the distributions of Linux or Windows Subsystem for Linux that is available online and is available for installation. Over here, we have multiple versions. Now, essentially, because I already have 22.04 installed, I am not going to install that. But to take you through the steps, I am going to install the 18.04. So I am going to follow this command, which is over here. So we're going to do WSL --install -d, which is the distribution flag, and then we're going to name our distribution. For most of you, it's going to be 22.04. For me, it is 18.04. At this point, it's going to install or download the 18.04 image from online and is going to install that. It's faster for me because I've already done this before and I already had the 18.04. However, it may take some time for you guys for it to download and then install. Now it's giving us a prompt, which is enter Unix username. Now essentially this is creating a user for yourself. You can name this to whatever. I'm going to name it my name. And then it's asking you for a password. Put something super secure, something you can remember. And what it does is it completes the operation successfully, and then it goes through and registers us as a user. Now we are in this is the Linux environment. How do you know this is the Linux environment? We do uname-a, and it says Linux, and then Microsoft standard subsystem for Linux. And when it was in our, sorry, my time's not correct, but what time it is and other information about the environment. Now, essentially, once you install this and you close this and you're like, where do I access this from? There's multiple ways to do it. The best way is just looking up Ubuntu, and it gives you everything that you have installed. And if you click it, it should open something up. The other way is using this app, and then essentially you can over here, you can see all the command line interfaces that you have, and then select which one you want to use and put that to use. You can also go to settings and set a default profile. So essentially when you click on this app, it should go to your default profile. For me, it is 22.04. Now let's look at some important commands or where your files are stored. So essentially if you want to see where your files are stored, so essentially when you do ls, it should show you where all of your files are stored. But we don't know where they are. And if we do pwd, which is print working directory, it just gives us home and then the username. Now essentially this is correct. That is the working directory which it is for Linux. However, it's not the working directory where it is stored in the Windows system. So to go look where they are, we use this command called explorer.exe dot, and it takes you to this place. It opens your Explorer page and then shows you where all of your directories and files and folders are saved. Now, a couple more things. After you have installed, we are going to run a couple commands. The first one is sudo apt update and enter your password. Now, essentially, this is updating everything that it needs. And then we also do sudo apt upgrade, which installs the newest versions for all the needed packages. And this might take some time for you, might not take any time, depending on how much you have. Now, essentially, lastly, before we end for the video, if you have any problems during this part and you need to uninstall your Windows subsystem, what we do is we go to the Windows command line interface. Again, we do a list, and instead of online, we do verbose, which shows us all the installations of the Windows subsystem that is available on our system. And for me, it's 18.04 and 22.04, and the version that it's showing you, that is the WSL version. Now, let's go ahead and see how to uninstall this. The command is -- unregister and then the name of your distribution, which I am going to uninstall the 18.04 version since I do not need it. And it should do that, clear. And then if we list the Windows subsystems that are installed and active on our system, it should only show 22.04. Now essentially you're going to have the app available. Once you click it, it's going to go through the installation process again. If you want to completely remove it, you can do it through the control panel and removing all the files necessary for this. Thank you so much for watching this, and have a great day.